We were getting wiped out in the game. Jim Kelly was injured, was out of the game. All season long, we had won the takeaway giveaway battle. That's why we were in the Super Bowl. This game, we had 8 giveaways, fumbles, interceptions. Score was 52-17 with about a minute to play, and Dallas is marching down the field again. Frank Reich's at quarterback, fades back to throw a pass. We're trying to put some points on the board. Don Beebe takes off down, streaking down the sideline. He's going to throw a deep one to Don, but he gets sacked. The ball comes out of his hands at about our 40-yard line. Leon Lett picks it up and takes off for the end zone. It's going to be 59-17. 40 yards away, Don Beebe, if he scores or doesn't score, it's not going to change the outcome of the game. Without a second's hesitation, takes off in pursuit. Don was the speediest guy on our team, by the way. He and James Lofton sprinting as Leon gets to near the yard or two from the end zone. He raises the ball in triumph. Don Beebe swats it out of his hands. It goes out of the end zone. Touchback. Fine. The game ends 52-17. Bill Polian even later told me that was the signature spirit of the Buffalo Bills, and it's why it helped inspire us to go back the next year. Talking about guys of high character, Don Beebe is another one of them.
So when you go back to a Buffalo Bills reunion, this is probably the biggest question of all. Do you wear your Super Bowl ring?
No. Well, if you could see this on camera, see that finger's all messed up. We call that Favreism. Favre blew my finger out, and that's my ring finger. So I can't wear any rings. So my rings just sit in my den. The 4 with Buffalo and the 2 with the Green Bay, all 6 rings just kind of sit in the den. But no, I don't wear the ring.
You guys talk about it all?
You know, I'm not, I guess for one, I'm not one for, it's funny you bring this up, because I only rubbed it in one time, and it was at a roast for Jim Kelly. And, you know, it was hard for me to do it because I really knew how, you know, I would want him to have a ring, a Super Bowl ring. But I did rub it in on him one time. I won't tell you what I said, but it was pretty funny.
Oh, go ahead. It's a private stock here.
Well, to make a long story short, I basically had gotten this ring of an emblem of a Super Bowl ring. It was about this big, okay? And so I kind of had it hidden. And when I was talking and stuff like this, I had to bring it out, and I said, you know, this fat gold ring like this to Jim. To bring it up to that story was pretty funny. It actually brought the crowd to their feet. But I will say this. When I won the Super Bowl with Green Bay, I remember standing on the field, you know, because I was a safety guy 10 yards behind Favre. And I was looking up at the clock in the, you know, New Orleans in the Dome. And I was thinking to myself, my goodness, I'm going to finally win one of these crazy things, you know? And then the feelings of guilt really kind of came over me, because I felt really, man, why me? You know, why not Jim? Marv, Levy, and Bill Polian, and all the people in Western New York. I mean, my thoughts were going to all those guys and all those people that I wish they could be sharing this moment with me. I really did. So it was kind of a mixed emotion feeling for me. I enjoyed it, but I tell you, I shared it with a lot of people back here that really were happy for me, but I was kind of winning it for them too, in a sense, you know. So it was a cool moment.
Don Beebe's name was forever cemented in NFL history during Super Bowl XXVII. His team was losing by 35 points when the other team's lineman, Leon Lett, stripped the ball from the quarterback and was running for an easy touchdown. With the lopsided game almost over, Don did again what he's done his whole life: the impossible. He started running from 50 yards behind, catching up to Lett on the 1-yard line to steal the ball, saving a touchdown. Because of his spirit and dedication to the game, he received ESPN's first ever Play of the Year award and set the NFL standard.
Incredible moment in time of the Super Bowl against the Cowboys, and the Leon Lett as the emblematic moment for a Buffalo Bills character person. It's Don
Yeah.
Beebe. You want to walk us through kind of that event, because that years from now they'll know about Don Beebe because
Yeah.
of Leon Lett.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about that tonight. Just never giving up. You know, I don't think that's something that doing a play like that. I don't think it's just something that you just can automatically do. I think it's built in you at a very young age, and so I give all my credit to my hero, and that was my dad, and my coaches that I had in youth league and in high school. They just taught me the principles of never giving up. So I didn't know any better. And I tell people that if you're sitting there in a situation, and let's just say the situation of Super Bowl 27, and you see the ball fumbled and it picked up by a defensive lineman named Leon Lett, how you react to that situation is really revealing your character. And this is what Marv always hits home on, is your character will be revealed at every game. Every game you ever play, no matter what sport you play, your character's either good or bad. And for me, being a high school coach now and training a lot of athletes, I'm seeing more bad and more bad, which is kind of sad. And so I'm trying to do my part, like many men and women across the country, and mothers and fathers, bringing their kids up in an atmosphere that there's not a choice here. For example, if you start a sport, I remember in my house, if you started a sport, okay, you might not be the star player, you might be just a role player, you might not get a lot of playing time. That doesn't mean we quit and try to find another sport, or you started it, you're going to finish it. It was so bad in my house that whatever I took on the dinner plate, I had to finish it. I couldn't throw it away. My dad made us finish whatever we took. So it was just an ingrained character that my dad instilled in me. So getting to a situation like that, I give him all the credit. And then I will also say this, I share my faith a lot. My faith is everything of who I am as a person. Because of my faith, I really believe too that when I played sports, it really wasn't playing for me. I didn't have a whole lot of self-pity, even though there was times I felt sorry for myself. I tried my hardest to play for him. And when you play for him, I think for the most part, you have tendencies to always play hard. Always give it everything you got. Never quit. Shake their hands when you get your tails whooped. Say, nice job. Admit your mistakes, humility. We don't live in a society much anymore where men are willing to say, hey, sorry. Hey, nice job. I don't want to be one of those guys. And I don't certainly want to coach kids and teach kids that either today. So that's why I'm in youth sports, and I love every minute of it.
Everybody knows you by that whole Leon Lett episode, but that was not the last time your paths crossed with Leon Lett.
Yeah, we're actually hoping that it comes out later this year or next year, a documentary on the play. We were approached, I was approached, and I said, well, as long as Leon wants to do it, I'm fine with that, you know. So they contacted Leon. I met Leon one time. It was 2 months after the Super Bowl. Sports Illustrated did an article on the play. And so we spent some time down in Florida together one day. But this was really a time, and this happened about a year and a half ago, that they started filming all this documentary stuff. And I got to spend 3 days with them, going to dinner, spending time with them, spent the whole day with them. We did a reenactment on a field, and it was come to find out that he's a great guy. I mean, a gentle giant, and so me and Leon have become pretty good buddies now. He's a D-line coach at Dallas Cowboys, and you know, we text each other once in a while. But I'm a big Leon fan. You know, I got to hand it to him because he went through a lot of turmoil. You know, he still does. But yet he still uses that same play, but he comes at it from a completely different angle than I do. But we reached the same pinnacle of never giving up. And I got to hand it to a guy to have that kind of character, be able to do that under that kind of scrutiny. They really knew Leon and the kind of person he really is. They would actually enjoy being around him. He's a good guy.
Fitting that it was only a couple of miles from here, down the road at Canelan High School, a small white kid with lightning-fast speed started his almost impossible road to the NFL. A road starting on the construction crews, completely out of sports, to an NFL career including 6 Super Bowls and a member of Super Bowl 31 world champion Green Bay Packers.
Just on the speed piece, was that a God-given talent, or was that the role models simply teach you technique that got you to a level which you became one of the fastest, I've heard the term used, so I apologize, the fastest white men in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a gift. I was born with genetically fast legs. Thank goodness, because if I wouldn't have been born with that, I'd never played in the NFL. That's for sure. What did I think I could play in the NFL? Well, as I would tell any kid, and I'll tell kids tonight, that if it's laid on your heart to really want to be something or do something, man, go for it. You know, too many people today quit on things way too early. They quit on their jobs, they quit on their marriages, they quit on friendships and relationships, and I just don't want to be known as that. I want to give everything I got, and because of that and fast legs, I was able to achieve that at the ultimate level, and that was the NFL. But at a very young age, yes, I wanted to.
So what was the tipping point? At some point,
Yeah. Yep.
along your career, say, I can do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably when a guy by the name of Bill Giles, he was a combine scout. I played 1 year at Western Illinois, 1 year at Chautauqua State, a real small school in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. And I only played 2 years of college football, and that was the Bills' first pick. But it wasn't until a guy by the name of Bill Giles that came through Chautauqua, Nebraska, heard there was some fast kid up there that needed to be looked at. And what his job was to go out and find the top 300 players in all of college football to invite them to the big show at Indy. Well, how in the world is a kid from Chautauqua going to get invited to that, right? Well, Bill comes out and works me out until his dying day. Never told me what I ran, but it must have been pretty fast, because he told me at the end of the workout, he said, Don, this is the best workout I ever put a kid through. And at that time, he'd been doing it for 32 years. So I assumed it was pretty good, the 40. He said, I'm going to give them my highest recommendation. You need to be seen. You need to go to this combine. Well, fortunately, I got invited because of Bill. And then I go to the combine, and I broke the all-time record of the 40 that year. I ran a 4.25 with Deion Sanders. So that record stood for 17 years until Chris Johnson in 2007 broke it. I say that not because of me, but I say that because that had to happen. You know, a kid come from Chautauqua, you're not going to get drafted. But a kid comes from Chautauqua and breaks the all-time record, okay, that turned on a lot of light bulbs. So at that point, when I got back home and the LA Raiders and Green Bay Packers were on my doorstep in Chautauqua, literally waiting for me, I had to do 21 personal workouts. There was 28 teams at that time. I had to do 21 personal workouts. At that point, I knew somebody was probably going to take me.
Yeah. You surprised the Bills took you?
I'll be honest with you, I was so naive. I didn't know what to expect. And I didn't have any expectations. I went into the draft day just thinking to myself, hey, Lord, wherever you want me to go, I'm willing to go. I will say this, though. After I look back and reflect on my career, and there's no other better place I could have been than Buffalo. It was absolutely the highlight of my life, the time of my life. If people ask me if you could go back in time, what time would that be? And I'd say early 90s in Buffalo, hands down. Not even a close second for me. For me and my wife, we were just married, starting out kids, living the dream in Buffalo, Western New York, and to share it with the team that I did, and the organization I did, and the Western New York people that I did, it don't get any better in sports than that.
Coalesced with some folks like Frank Reich and others. What do they mean to you? I mean, first of all, how did that relationship really begin, and then how did it get developed?
Frank's one of the wisest individuals I've ever been around. Very sharp. We hit it off right away. First evening, and from then on, I mean, he was roommates with John Kidd up at that point in time, and then that next season, me and Frank became roommates for 6 years. One was in Carolina, but my last 5 years here. So, and we're still best of friends. As I am with a lot of the guys. That's a unique group in the sense of we get back together and it was like we never missed a beat. I think there's 24 guys that went to all 4 Super Bowls. It's like a fraternity. You know, it's almost like blood. It's like brothers. We get together at Jim's tournament, or we're back for a function, or whatever it is. the same lingo, the same way we treated each other 25 years ago. We're doing the same stuff. It's like we've never grown up, and that's a good thing. Like I said, in sports, I think that's very unique to have that kind of closeness with a group. And you can add on to that Bill Polian, Marv, Levy. People in Western New York will always remember that group, and we will always remember them.
Alexander McGillney's career is all about firsts. First Soviet player to defect, first Russian NHL All-Star, first European-born player to be an NHL captain. All that, and he can score goals as well.
You arrive in Buffalo day one, and you're the #1 draft pick that year, and you were usurped by a much bigger headline in the Buffalo sports.
Yeah, I remember it well. Sure. We were, I'll never forget that day because Diane and I flew in. I mean, you talk about naive. We didn't know what to expect. I mean, I'm coming from the middle of nowhere, Nebraska now. And we get in a plane, we fly, and we're walking down the tarmac, and at the end of it, you see, I mean, it's all this media. We're talking like 50 to 100 reporters. And I grab her hand, and I'm like, there ain't no way that's for us. I mean, oh my gosh, this is crazy, you know? So we're walking down, and all of a sudden we get in there, and then, I mean, you're seeing all the national, you know, sports writers and stuff like that, and I said, something's got to be going on here. Well, sure enough, that was when Alexander McGillney defected from Russia, and he was coming in the same time. So I had my 8 reporters over here, and he had about 100 of them over there, but it was kind of pretty cool.
Did you connect with him afterwards? Did you ever?
I got to know Alex. Matter of fact, it's kind of a funny story. I'd never been on skates before, and I'm from Chicago, so you thought I would be, but I'd never been on skates. And I decided one time a bunch of us guys were going to go over there and skate with the Sabres. Now, some of the players had skated before, I hadn't. I get out there, and I just flopped. Now, being an athlete, I did okay, but I was, you know, the pigeon-toed guy. And Alexander come up to me, and in his Russian lingo, he looked at me and he said, "Dude, it's not that hard." I'll never forget it. I was like, "Well, when you were born with skates on your feet." Yeah, so he started skating around with me and playing with me, him and LaFontaine, and me and Pat actually became pretty good friends. But I enjoyed those days. Sabres were a big Sabre fan. The Bears were. I loved Walter Payton. He was my hero when I was growing up. I just loved his work ethic, what he stood for. Very unselfish guy. So yeah, I grew up a Bear fan, but once I became Buffalo, I became a Buffalo fan. So, but yeah, I still live there in that area, but I root for the Bills. I don't root for the Bears, that's for sure. So I get a lot of crap though, being a high school coach, that's for sure.
So you joined the Bills. This is 1989, and your first professional catch.
Yeah.
Was a significant professional catch.
This was a great memory. I remember the first time I'm in the huddle, and I wish I could stand to show you this because it's actually pretty funny.
Well, why don't you? Go ahead.
Well, it's okay. I'll kind of
okay.
I'll make you feel like you're there. But I get in the huddle, and it's a run play, and it's a run away from me to Thurman Thomas. So I mean, this is the first time I've ever been in the huddle. So I'm running up the line of scrimmage, and lo and behold, the corner that I'm going against is Chris Dishman, you know, a great Oiler, you know, spent a lot of years there. And he's coming up and he's talking trash. You know, this is my first experience. He's like, "Hey, white boy, I hear you can run. Let's see it, man. Let's see it." And he was just playing with me, you know. He wasn't being serious. But I was still kind of, you know, I was like, oh, wow, taken back by it a little bit. So he's right in my face. "Come on, white boy, let's go." So it was just a run. I block him and everything like that. So get in the huddle next time. Next third down, because back in my rookie year in '89, we weren't doing the K-gun offense, no huddle. It was every third down I would come in. So the next third down play, I'm supposed to do this post corner route. And as the huddle's about to break, Kelly whispers to me, he goes, "Beebs." He goes, "If Dishman's pressed, I'm throwing it to you. Go deep, man." I'm like, oh, gosh, man. I'm like scared to death. So I'm going up the line of scrimmage, and sure enough, he's coming right up in my grill again. I'm like, and he's talking trash. "Come on, white boy, let's see it, man. I ain't seen nothing last time." So anyway, and this is a complete God thing because I literally beat him, and I look back in the lights of the dome at Houston Astrodome, and I lost the ball in the light on the last few seconds, and I just kind of stuck my hand and it stuck right there. If you watch the film, it kind of stuck in my right hand, then I kind of brought it in without breaking stride and stayed in bounds. So I beat him for a 63-yard touchdown. But that's not the funniest part of the story. The funniest part of the story is when we get back in the huddle. Now, first, the exhilaration after scoring a touchdown, your first pass ever, I mean, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I skipped like a schoolgirl, you know. I got made fun of the next day in film, and then Andre tackles me, hurts my shoulder. But it was quite a scene. And all the players that came down, I look at that play now and I say, man, that was a team. You know, you don't see that much anymore. You see a couple of guys, you know, they do these gyrations and stuff like this, and they just kind of walk away and let him do his deal. But, man, you want to see a team watch when we scored. And it's missed. I love those days. But so next time in the huddle, next third down, on the next series, it's another run play. Sweep away from me again, or off tackle. So I'm coming to the line of scrimmage, and Dishman comes right up in my face, and he goes, dang, white boy can run, and he backs up about 8 yards. So he played 13 years, I think, and so we had a pretty good relationship during the years every time we played each other. But, yeah, so that was my first experience as a Buffalo Bill, and it was a great way to break in, that's for sure.
That was the beginning of the season. Towards the end of that year, you ended up playing the Browns, and you became part of a highlight film.
Yeah. Where actually the K-gun kind of came in was that 89 playoff game against Cleveland. We started doing no huddle because we were behind and we were trying to catch up in the game, and we were clicking and things were just smooth, and Jim was at his best. He was in his comfort zone, and so that after that year they started talking about this is how we're going to implement this, and that's how the K-gun started. But in that game it was a third and long play, and it was it was late second half because we're trying to do no huddle at the end of the first half. Try to score some points before halftime. And Jim throws it high in the air, which I always give him crap about. But and I went up, caught the ball, and Felix Wright knocks my feet out, and next thing I know, I'm upended. And I've had many chiropractors and doctors tell me through the years that if I would have just had my head tilted either sideways or front or back, that I could have, with the weight coming down, done some serious damage. But all it did hit directly on the crown, top of my head, and it pogoed stick me straight up in the air. All it did was knock the wind out of me and tore my neck muscle, which even today at 51 years old, I still have, ill feelings on it at times, but it is what it is. It is well worth it. And they landed up calling it an incomplete pass, which was kind of deal. And it's funny because I was on a flight. It was that offseason. I was on a flight, and the head of, I want to say his name was Art McNally, but it was the head of the referee. And I saw him in the front of the plane. And I didn't know if he recognized me or not or whatever, but I actually walked up to him, and I stood next to him. And he looks at me and makes eye contact. He goes, I know. I mean, I didn't even say a word. He goes, I know. He goes, it was a catch. I guess I said, he goes, Don, he said, you got to understand, we go over these plays every offseason, so we go, and that was one of the plays they went over, and he just said, we've never seen anything like it. He didn't know what to call, because the only thing it couldn't have been was what they did call was an incompletion, because it's either a catch or an interception, because Felix, or one of their guys, caught it out of the air. So that was kind of a funny story in itself, but yeah, we landed up going on and then not winning that game, but that's certainly a highlight of mine too, yes.
Lakewood, New York, which is near Frewsburg, New York,
yeah,
which is the hometown of Shane Conlan.
Shane Conlan,
Do you have a story?
Of Shane?
Yeah.
Shane?
Yeah.
Buckethead? No, I love.
You've heard that term before,
yeah. I love Shane, man. Shane was one of those guys. He's your typical guy of that era, the Buffalo era. Just a fun-loving guy, great guy to be around, heart of gold. Played hard, practiced all the time, tough as nails. He's the kind of guy that if he would have had the speed, he probably would have ran down Leon Lett too. He's that kind of person. So, there's nothing I can say bad about Shane Conlan. I enjoyed his friendship. What I enjoyed the most was him and Gail Gilbert would always team up against me and Frank Reich in playing golf together, and we always do a two-man scramble like that, and they could never beat us. And he would cheat. He was the worst cheater ever, so Shane quit cheating.
Well, you're a pretty competitive guy. You don't lose easily. In fact, as I recall, you said something about beating your mother constantly at chess. I don't know what that meant.
Well, something like that, but
Yeah.
What the actual story I say is, I love my mom, but if we're playing chess, I said I'm going to win, and then I'll tell her I love her after I win. But I am very competitive. I come from a very competitive family. I think the story that you read in the book about bluegills, for crying out loud, and that's kind of a funny, because we go fishing up north in Minnesota this will be our 48th year, and nobody in the family's ever missed. And the record was like 50 bluegills. So one day I went out and just fished off the dock until I caught 166 bluegills, I think it was. And so I could just have that one, have all these dots on the board, because my dad would put all these dots on the board, and make it look real colorful, and I had to win. I had to catch the most fish, and my dad wasn't going to put 166 dots. He only put one dot, and I was mad, and so it's kind of a funny family story, but I'm very competitive.
You're very competitive.
Yeah.
You're involved in 6 Super Bowls, 4 with the Bills. You won AFC championships, unprecedented 4 straight time, but still being so competitive. How was that?
Well, I think that's why we went back to 4, was because of that competitiveness. And I wasn't the only one. We had a team full of them. I do remember when we land the plane and get back to Buffalo, first place I know I went I was in the weight room working out. There's no time off. We got to go again. I hate to lose, but I'm also understanding that I will lose. And then when you do lose, you lose with grace and dignity. And unlike what we just saw, I think you lose with dignity, and you move on, because you're going to lose and you're going to win. So I want to teach kids the right way to lose, and I want to teach kids the right way to win. And losing is not pouting. Losing is, I'll get you next time.
When the team came back after the loss against the Giants, and of course the city came out in mass in the Scott Norwood moment.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys react to Scott really being called out positively?
Yeah.
How was the reaction of the teammates?
It could have been any one of those guys. That lost that game. Why did we tackle what's his face on 4th down? We had several opportunities, and I know Darryl would be the first to say that, and I've heard him say it many a times. Scott missed a kick. What most people don't understand was he hit the kick he wanted to hit. Frank, obviously being my roommate, was the holder, and in pregame, Scott kept drawing the ball in, and so he hit that. Frank, when he hit it, Frank knew it was in, but it never came in for some reason. Why that one didn't come in, but they all did in pregame, didn't hook. Yeah. So it wasn't that. It was kind of like putting a 10-foot putt and watching the guy in a scramble hit before you, and it hooks, and then you hit it and it doesn't hook. Scott really felt like it was going to hook, and it didn't. He hit a great kick. I feel bad that he didn't make it, because tell you, the man certainly deserves to make it. And the next year, showing the character again of a Buffalo Bill player and who we were, he hit the kick for us to go to another one. Mm-hmm. And that just showing you the true character of Scott Norwood.
Of Super Bowl 31 world champion Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre was quoted after the game as saying, "We would have never won without him."
What do you mean by that?
What Brett meant by that was, when I got to Green Bay, I was the 3rd guy behind Robert Brooks and Antonio Freeman. So I was the 3rd receiver on that at that time. And on a Monday night against the 49ers, Robert Brooks, on the first play of the game, got hit and tore his ACL. He was done for the year. And so I had to go. Next man up. And that night, we had to win that game, because if we wouldn't have beat the 49ers that year, we probably would have had to gone to San Francisco for the playoff game instead of them coming to us in the playoff game. And it was a mud bowl, which we pulled out and won that. Well, that game I had a career game, with 11 catches and 220 yards in that game, and that's why Brett says that, because I filled in for, our top wideout when he got hurt. Yeah, Monday, after we found out we were in, and we won, and in the next meeting, Mike pulled me and Jim aside before the meeting in his office and said, I would like for the two of you to share your thoughts with the team. You're the only two that have ever been to it. Jim, you won it. Don, you've lost 4, but I would want you to talk to the team. And then he looks at Jim and he goes, you tell him what not to do. And he looks at me and you tell him what to do during the week of the Super Bowl. Because Jim was a knucklehead. So anyway, we did. I felt honored along with Jim that we got up and just kind of shared what it was like. Because these guys had no idea what they're about to partake in. I just love to hear these kids quote themselves, it's just another game. I'll be fine. Well, they were saying that in Carolina this past Super Bowl, and it wasn't the same. It's a different game. And I will say this, why did Buffalo lose and Green Bay win? Well, I really believe this. Buffalo was a more talented team, no question about it, hands down. More Hall of Fame guys, from an organization and chemistry, everything within itself, the Buffalo team was a better team. If we were to play them during the season, Buffalo would win. So why was Green Bay able to win it and then Buffalo couldn't? Well, the best analogy I could give you would be this. In Super Bowl 28, our 4th one, the first half we're kind of handling the game on the line of scrimmage pretty good. We're up at half, 3 points or whatever it was. And so we go in, we're feeling pretty good. We're going to come out. Everything was positive. Okay, guys, we're going to finally do this. This is our time. This is it, Well, we come out, and then we all know Thurman fumbles it. And James Washington picks it up, scores a touchdown. Well, we're down, 4 points? 3-4 points at that time? When you come to the sideline, it was dead quiet. Deer in the headlight look. Nobody saying a word. Nobody was yelling or bickering or nothing like that, but nobody was saying a word. It was just dead emotions. It just took the emotion right out of us. Well, we land up not scoring another point. They go on to drive, run it right down our throat with Emmitt Smith and blow us out, 30-13 or whatever it was. So fast forward 2 years now, I'm with Green Bay. Well, we go up early, 10-0. Next thing you know, Bledsoe goes boom, boom, hits 2 quick touchdowns, and we're down 14-10 in early second quarter, sometime in that game. Well, I really believe that if it would have been Buffalo at the sideline at that time, it was a completely different atmosphere. Now that I'm in Green Bay, all the leaders, and at this point I was one of them. I wasn't going to lose another one. That was my mentality. That's why I went there. Leroy Butler, Eugene Robinson, the vocal guys, Reggie White, all these guys were up and down the sideline saying, guys, we're fine. It's no big deal. Everything was positive. It was like, keep doing what we're doing. Well, we did. Next thing you know, the halftime score was us 27, them 14. The point is this. If Buffalo could have handled the emotions outside of Super Bowl 25, the first one, forget that one. Okay, we just got beat and it didn't work out. But we played good football, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You take the other 3, 6 turnovers, Super Bowl 26, 9 turnovers, Super Bowl 27, and 3 critical turnovers in Super Bowl 28 was the difference in the game. And why? Why does that happen? Because of the emotions. We couldn't handle the emotion of the game for some strange reason. Why? I don't know. And really, I think that's got to come from the leaders, the teams, the captains of the teams. You got to get yourself through the tough times, because every Super Bowl is going to have its really highs and its really lows, because it's the Super Bowl. It's the emotions of it. You can't control it. What you have to be able to do is fight through it, and somebody say we're okay, and then go out there and make a play. And that's what happened in Green Bay and not in Buffalo.
You were at 6 Super Bowls, and your book sort of ends at the end of at least this book, at the 5th one when you won. What happened during the 6th Super Bowl? Just for the record.
I don't share it too much. Yeah, because that was a hard thing for me to end my career. I think I was so competitive, as we know, we've talked about that it took me to have it taken away that I had to retire. What happened was I was hurt. In my 9th year, I was hurt. And so I didn't get to play a lot. I was Beebe bopping out, and when I was healthy, I played. I was the 3rd receiver. And then the playoffs came, and I said I was going to, I helped make the run and like that, and then I kind of tweaked my hamstring. And then I had 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, and I told Mike, I said, Mike, I'll be Holmgren. I said, I'll be ready. So I got myself ready. I practiced the last few days in Green Bay before we even left to fly out to San Diego. And we get there, and all ready to go to practice. And on Tuesday, which is our day off, it was media day, Mike calls me into the one of the rooms at the hotel we were staying at. We were the only two in there, and he says, Don, we're not going to dress you. And I was like, why? I'm ready. In my mind, I'm thinking, man, been to 5. I can help this team and everything of this nature. And he gave me a reason that they were going to dress Ronnie Anderson, who was on developmental, because they didn't want to lose him. If they didn't dress him, they said they could lose him in free agency. Well, this was a kid that's never played before. Okay, and to top it off, 2 weeks after the Super Bowl was over, they cut him. So there was something that happened there that I'll never know. I'm 51. I still don't know why I didn't get to play in that Super Bowl. And that, not that I dwell on it. I don't ever speak about it. This is really the third time I've ever spoken about it. And the other 2 were private conversations. This is the only time publicly that I've said something. I've said something, I think, in the last book that I did, too. But, and I look at it saying, I don't blame Mike. I don't blame anything. I look at it, I believe that that's what God knew what it was going to take for me it was done. Because I trained for 4 months later after that really hard to get ready, and I was ready to fly out to Oakland and sign with John Gruden, a 2-year deal with the Oakland Raiders. And a couple of days before I was supposed to get on that plane, I just decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. So, and I think it was that episode that brought me to that point. So, anyway, I'm doing fine.
Fantastic. As you sit here, and before we run out of time, I do want you to kind of pause and put the whole Don Beebe legacy into perspective. I mean, you're strong of faith. Your book exhibits that. You established so much with, frankly, on so little. Can you put the Don Beebe legacy?
Well, you mentioned one. I mean, if the legacy that if I hope to leave is a man of faith first and foremost, but also a man that I'm like every common man. I can walk the malls and the movie theaters and the restaurants, and nobody knows me unless I'm in Western New York, and that's okay. If I can do it, anybody can do it, and that's what I tell kids today. Never give up. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up what's been laid on your heart. Don't let anybody say that you can't do it, because I had many say you're crazy. And so I train a lot of athletes and I coach athletes, and I see a lot of inspiring eyes. But I also see it get taken away, and to me that's sad. And so the legacy of me would be that I love my wife, I love my 4 kids, I love being around them. And those are the most important things in life outside my faith. I've always lived by faith, family, friends, then football, or whatever my job would be. And that will never change. And hopefully that will be the legacy of Don Beebe.
I understand you have been able to develop sort of a relationship with a local woman, Melissa Stanton.
Yep.
Could you just talk about the background of that relationship?
Yep.
What she and your current relationship with her today?
I broke my leg December 23rd, 1990, playing against the Dolphins. This was the stretch where we're running now. This is becoming the beginning of the Buffalo Bill run. Everybody knew we were going to be the first team in Buffalo to go to Super Bowl. Everybody was feeling it in the organization. And it was an exciting time, and we're playing the Dolphins in Rich Stadium, and it was a big game. And obviously the rivalry goes without speaking, but I was blocking Tim McKyer on the right side. It was a sweep to the right, and Thurman Thomas cut up inside me, and John Offerdahl, their linebacker, dove at Thurman and missed me and went right into my planted leg on the turf and snapped my leg in half right there. I didn't know at the time. I thought it blew my knee out. So I laid on my stomach and I rolled onto my right shoulder, and it was my left leg. So my leg is up here, the knee's up here, and my leg was down, my foot was down by the turf. So I kind of rolled on my back and said, not good. I knew it was broke. So obviously Frank Reich was the quarterback at that time, and having your best friend out on the field, he just came over and started praying with me. And that's how I was able to get up and give a fist pump to the crowd, and I mean, I can still hear the whole crowd, 80,000 people screaming Beebe, Beebe. I mean, gives me goosebumps just thinking about it now. I knew I would be back. A lot of people doubted it, but it was a very trying time. We all have trials. This was a trial for me, knowing they were going and knowing I wasn't going to play. Sitting in the hospital that night, you know, you just self-pity goes through your, a little bit depressing. All the players are calling, and Marv stops by, and what can they say? Well, there's the nurse that came to my room and said, there's this little girl, this little 12-year-old girl that wants to meet you. She's a huge Beebe fan. You know, and your first reaction is, do I really have to at this point in time? But then the good nature in me said, yeah, have her come on over. So she rolls in. She has spinal cancer. She's been through 12 different surgeries at this time. She had a halo over her head just to hold her neck up, and she was in a wheelchair, and she wheeled in, and she had the biggest spirit of anybody I've ever met, and still today. And we just connected big time. I mean, we became really close. So she became my buddy. I'm Don Beebe to her. She's I'm her big buddy. And, you know, we came close. I brought her to a couple of games, and the players got to know her, took her out to the Super Bowl, and her family. And just 2 days ago, I get a call that because I was going to bring her tonight, and I was going to introduce her and talk a little bit about our relationship tonight, about never giving up. She's 37 now, and she had a heart attack 2 days ago. So I went over to the hospital today. I've been over there the last few hours just visiting with her. I hadn't seen her in a while. You know, she's 60 pounds. I mean, her legs are about this thin, and she still has that same spirit. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just gravitating. So I brought her a dog, a little stuffed dog, and the dog's name is Buddy. And we just, you know, we hit it off like we had missed a beat, you know. Yeah, it was tough to leave her.
Sure. Up until then, up until today, had you guys remained in touch via letter, email, whatnot? She probably texts me once a month. That's really special. That's really special.
Final thing is, what's a question you expected us to ask that we didn't?
I love this. I love being on the spot questions. What's Jim Kelly's greatest prank?
What's Jim Kelly's greatest prank?
Or Brett Favre's greatest prank?
Yeah, either one, or both.
I would say this, that one, Brett Favre is the biggest practical joker I've ever been around, ever. That includes Jim McMahon. Brett just had more scruples than Jim did. Jim had none. I mean, it's crazy. Brett's, well, should I say that one publicly? Probably not. Probably the funniest thing, one of the funniest things Brett used to do is he would literally go into the stalls in the bathroom and the toilets, and he would hop up on the toilet so you couldn't see his feet, and he'd have the door shut, and he'd have this big bucket of ice with water. And so he would sit there with this bucket of ice, and he'd just wait until a guy would come in, and he wouldn't just pour it on you right away. He would wait until just the moment that you were about to go, and then he hit you with it. And that was he never got me, but you would hear it every time a guy just yell as loud as possible, and you knew who it was. It was Brett. But Jim and Brett were a lot alike. They were middle linebackers playing quarterback, so they brought the same mentality to the game. Both practical jokers. Both just loved to play, man. I couldn't have asked for two better quarterbacks to play with. And then to have, you know, Frank as the backup to Jim when, you know, Frank was in, to be, you know, one of my best friends ever. If I was to do my career all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. I wish I could have stayed in Buffalo all 9 years. I would do that in a second. People ask me this all the time, would you rather go to a Super Bowl and win it or go back and lose 4 more? I'd say I'd go back and lose 4 more in a heartbeat.
You're terrific. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, you bet.